Welcome back to our first implementation session of today, building an efficient entrepreneurial ecosystem supporting health innovation. So I think this is one question that comes up often, especially from the side of the researchers, how to bridge the gap between research and innovation. We have for this session, again, a poll prepared for you. So please have a look on your right side of the screen and click on the interactivity button. And we have one question for you. What is the main lever for the translation of research to the market? So please take your time and send us your answers. And please do not forget that we have also for the session chat, where you can send comments, ideas you have for the topic, but especially you can ask questions to the speakers and to the panelists. So don't forget to write into the chat. With this, it is my great pleasure to introduce the two moderators of the session, Dr. André Albergaria and also Dr. Saladin Chibou. André is working at the Institute for Research and Innovation in Health, the 13S in Portugal. He is the coordinator of the Translational Research Unit. Saladin is the global head of discovery and investigative safety and global head of therapeutic areas in preclinical safety at the Novartis Institute for Biomedical Research. Thank you, André, and thank you, Saladin, first of all, for all your participation in the scientific committee. And thanks a lot for moderating the session. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Monica. Hi, everyone. Really a great pleasure to be with you today. And we have a really exciting session about our ecosystem and how we can make our ecosystem more entrepreneurial. So for that, for the ecosystem, we need different players. And so we will have the pleasure today to have different speakers coming from different parts of this ecosystem. Some small companies, large companies, academics, and of course, large pharma. So it's a great pleasure to moderate this session with André. After the two speakers, the two speeches, we will have an opportunity to have a panel session with two panelists joining us, later. And we'll have a lot of opportunities to ask questions, discuss, and interact with you. So I will encourage you really to send questions, and we'll be happy to look at your questions first and try to answer to those questions. So from that, so I will hand over to André now, who will introduce our first speaker.
Hello. Can I speak? Yeah. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I will start by saying that I'm very pleased to be part of the session with such a great speakers, and also very honored by sharing the moderation of this session with Saladin. It was great to work with you in the last months. I would like to introduce the first speaker of this session, Dr. Vjera Magdalenic-Moussavi. Dr. Vjera is the Director of Industrial Partnership and Commercialization for the Faculty of Medicine at Imperial College London, a team dedicated to drive the development and management of strategic research collaboration with the healthcare industry, but also developing actually an important and interesting activity in assisting early career researchers in their industrial engagements as well as entrepreneurship training. Dr. Vjera will talk about building bridges, how industry-academia collaborations can bridge the gap of innovation, presentation that will show us academic entrepreneurship in delivering both novel innovation into the corporate pipelines, as well real-world solutions in clinical setting. Saying that, I would like to welcome Dr. Vjera, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, André. I'm really pleased to be here today. And it's really interesting to hear the initial feedback from the various sessions that is on everyone's mind is how industry collaborations work in an academic setting. So I'm really glad for my first slide. I've chosen to present something that we present to our own researchers when we are trying to encourage them to work with industry. And this is research that was done at Imperial College Business School in terms of impact or industrial partnerships on the outputs of academics and peer evaluation. And what's very interesting is that industry collaborations absolutely increase the evaluation by peers if you have up to 10 collaborations, which for most academics is a very large number. So we encourage our academics to work with industry exactly through that, to understand their impact on the overall translational and innovation pathway. They're faced with real-world challenges. It can increase and diversify the research income, which is always very important to the academic community. They're having access to various resources, facilities, explicit knowledge from their industry partners, and it's by translating their research in collaboration with industry, they're enabling the broader access to their resulting technologies. There's something called REF, which is an assessment of quality of research in the UK. We are going through another cycle of that, and it absolutely increases your REF impact and quality of research that you're providing. And absolutely, and the final piece, which is always important in an academic setting, is the publications with industry partners are highly cited. Another side of that story that we present to our academics is why this is important for industry as well. And my colleagues at this session will talk a little bit more from that perspective. But from our perspective as a team that's encouraging this, there's certainly evidence in increased return on investment, remaining competitive in a highly competitive world. They're getting exposed to world-leading research. So academic centres and institutions are centres and hubs of innovation, and industry often comes to us to access that world-leading research. And let's not forget, it's the access to our student pool and the pool of both undergrad and postgraduate students and our early career researchers. So we spend a lot of time investing energy and training both curricular and extracurricular activities for students to understand how to work in industry and how to work within an entrepreneurial setting. So when we present a slightly more graphic way, we see traditional research as a meandering, lovely cycle in the woods, and industry is on the other side of that path. And what it's bringing to your research is real-world challenges as well as funding. And the team that I lead, Industrial Partnerships and Commercialization, we feel is a sort of rapid train that can take you through along that path, so to accelerate your research impact in the real world. So this is when we are encouraging our academics to collaborate with industry. This is what we tell them. They often ask us, about the ecosystem of innovation, and it is a very meandering, complicated, sometimes very confusing world that contains not just academics in terms of the healthcare setting that we're talking about today. It talks about academics, corporates, healthcare systems, regulatory bodies, contract research organizations, intellectual property offices and outputs, startups, spin-outs. It can be very confusing from a purely academic perspective. And we see, and also we often talk about something, the technology readiness levels and translation of the research, and we're trying to encourage that. And by defining into sort of phases as to how we can push from what is basic science all the way into translational community, we try to map it against what healthcare researchers understand in terms of the clinical pathway. So this graphic represents that. Going from basic research in preclinical animal studies all the way through to population level outcome research. And it's interesting to talk about it in this year when we're witnessing the rapidity of how quickly our vaccines that they were only in research stages in 18 months ago have come into the market. This is more just really defining what each phase does, but really it's going from basic research, proving proof of concept, and going all the way through to market. We talked about this valley of death in between academia and industry, and in the UK ecosystem, there's been huge strides in the last 10 to 15 years in trying, and really the government stepped into the space as well as wider EU funding to try to bridge that gap between what academics do, which is innovation, inquisitive research, basic research innovation, which is funded largely by the government or funding agencies, charities, And what industry is looking for is clear pathways into actually delivering final products into the market, and then bringing the gap in the middle, which we call translational funding. And there's been a huge growth within the sector in the UK as well as elsewhere in bringing teams like the one that I lead to try and build those two, bring those two sectors together. This is just a very quick overview of the sort of funding landscape in the UK, and I can't really comment on the wider global funding landscape. But I think what's telling in the last 10 years, that the middle part of this particular slide is really talking about the various translational pots of money that exist to encourage academics to go from their comfort zone, which is usually sort of in discovery and really looking at disease mechanisms, or possibly even just looking at very basic biology, or to take them through that middle piece so they are ready to engage with industry and to start translating their research into the real world. So the next section is really for me I would like to demonstrate how we do it at Imperial College. For those who haven't been to Imperial College, we're based in London's South Kensington. You can see on the left here the Royal Albert Hall, and we are here in the middle is the headquarters of the university. Imperial is not it's a fairly new university. It's about 150 years old, and the mission of Imperial from its inception has been about creating enduring excellence in research education, but also translating into benefits for society. It's quite unusual for universities to have that in their charter from the very beginning, and we're very, very proud of that. There's some facts about Imperial. We are one of the leading technological universities in the world. We'd like to call ourselves MIT of Europe. I'm not sure if my colleagues here and in the audience will agree with that. We tend to be ranked in the top 10, depending on different ranking systems. And we have a real reputation in science, engineering, medicine, business, and computing. We're a very international university. We're very proud that 65% of our student and staff body are international, and only 30% come from the UK. We collaborate extensively internationally. We've collaborated with peers in 192 countries. 100,000 research papers have been published with our collaborators, which makes over 50% of our publications. So international aspect is also important. And the next part is how do we engage with industry? Imperial probably has one of the largest infrastructures in terms of industry engagement. Its division of enterprise, there's about 120 people in that team, and we try and create an ecosystem that will enable our academics to work with industry, but also to bring the world to our academics so we can start creating real world impact. And when we are promoting this to our industry partners, we bring expertise of the academics, the talents of the students, various entrepreneurial spaces on the campuses and high-tech facilities. Just to give you some context, 10, 15 years ago, this didn't exist. Imperial has put a lot of effort into developing that infrastructure, and particularly in the last 5 years, to enable the world to come to us and to really, not just industry, but also community, so we become a lot more integrated into the wider community. What we can offer, so my team focuses very much on the hard metrics, industry partnerships, commercialization. So we protect IP, translate that IP into licenses and startups, as well as bring in industry income, which is what we're talking about today. But we do find, and through building the ecosystem within the university, we find that it's just as important to invest time and effort in supporting undergraduate students and postgraduate students in their training. So we provide a lot of entrepreneurial training, as well as early career researchers who are going to be the leaders of the future. So we spend a lot of effort to get them to start working with industry at a very early stage. So once they're leading academic groups or coming to pharmaceutical industry, they understand that bridge between the two worlds. Hopefully those will converge a bit more. We have, this is just some metrics from Imperial. We have it's a growing trend that we have more and more industry funding compared to other sources. In the last year, we've had about £65 million of industry funding from all the major players industrially. The majority of that, more than 35%, actually comes from pharmaceutical and healthcare and biotech industries, followed by the energy sector. This is just a graphic to show you where we stand in the UK. We're second to Oxford. Oxford have a very large clinical trials unit where some very late stage trials come through. So a lot of their income is skewed by very large numbers there, as we like to point out to anyone who comes to us. We feel that the Imperial industrial portfolio is very diverse, and about a third of our academics engage in industrial partnerships so far, and about a third of our academics disclose new inventions and patents to us. And the aim of our team is to grow this, and particularly with younger academics. This is yet another sort of slide to show you the type of growth we've had and the type of industries we work with. One thing that's core in how we manage to engage our academic community, and particularly in the context of healthcare research, in about 15 years ago, there's been a huge effort at Imperial and the wider community to bring together our NHS trusts, so the healthcare providers, with the universities to align the clinical needs with the research, particularly the faculties of medicine, but also across the science and engineering, to bring that innovation out of the university setting and translate it directly into the healthcare system. And this has been achieved through establishing something called the NIHR Biomedical Research Centres, or BRC. NIHR is the National Institute of Health Research, which is the research funding agency run by the Department of Health. And they fund infrastructure to bring large-scale facilities to enable this type of research and to really enable rapid funding deployment, so to enable translation of new research out of the university setting into the clinic. And it has had a significant impact on both the engagement in terms of translation activities, but also bringing industry to this pathway as well, because there is a much clearer picture as to how industry can get involved into that translation of research within the clinical setting. Here's just a few examples of the modes of engagement that my team offers to both the industry and academics. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, and solutions also very much depend on the ecosystem that you personally find yourself in. Some universities are smaller, some are bigger, have larger or smaller support mechanisms. Also, different countries have different types of funding. But within the UK setting and at Imperial, we're able to pursue a number of different modes. I'll highlight a couple. AstraZeneca is a key partner for us and have been for many, many years. They have supported us, particularly through the early translation. The Senior Vice President of Research at AstraZeneca, Sir Mene Pangalos, is very passionate about AstraZeneca scientists also publishing in high impact journals and producing excellent science. And he sees partnerships with universities as a key part of that. So we've created an innovation fund, which is now in the fifth year, that has really stemmed that collaboration, enabling particularly people that have never really considered working with industry and matching scientists from an academic perspective and from the industry perspective to work together. It's a fairly small pots of money, but they're seeding new collaborations, new friendships between the two organizations and bringing them to the fore. The other side of this is a very different mode of engagement, is the Apollo Therapeutic Fund, which is brought together by University of Cambridge, Imperial College and University College of London, and 3 pharmaceutical companies, AstraZeneca, GSK and J&J, and together they brought a fund they used the pipelines of the university, so translational IP that we were developing within the university setting, and then those 3 companies would choose to take some of the projects on and bring them into their own pipeline through the funding provided by Apollo. It is now in its 7th year and just about to be renewed. It's proven hugely successful, and it's really increased that interaction and pushing and giving an element of professionalism in translating that academic research into the industry and creating significant impact for both the companies and the academics. This is just an overview of our partnering process. I'm not going to go into detail, but it's what we do. We support everything from one single conversation between our academic and a company, trying to understand what they're interested in, what they're academically interested in, and also match with the needs of our corporate clients. And we try to kind of create and structure a project that's bringing together the partners in a way that they both benefit from it. This is another complex way of showing the same thing. The team that I lead we see ourselves as the caretakers of the IP and intellectual property and knowledge that's developed within our faculty, and helping translate that knowledge in the real world through various mechanisms, and I'm happy to discuss that later. This is just a slide telling us what sort of the size of opportunity for companies is to work with Imperial. We have about 300 to 400 disclosures per year, which means academics coming to us and saying, I have an idea, I think it's something that can be patented, please can be patented. We tend to file about a fifth of that, so about 60 patents per year are filed, and we tend to sign about 30 license deals a year, some of them small, some of them very large. It really depends on the mix of opportunities for that particular year. And we're very proud of the fact that in the last 10 years, the endeavours of our team have created about 1,000 jobs through the startups and spin-outs, growing some partnerships, bringing in new academics into Imperial. So it is very impactful and very important. Next couple of slides are just a couple of examples of the type of partnerships we've had. GSK is a key partner for Imperial, has been for many, many years. And there's a number of different ways that we engage. We have joint professorships, we have studentships, we have undergrad studentships, we have placements, student exchanges. They sponsor a number of different centres at the college, and it is something that's been very successful. And it's a partnership we continue to grow and continue to try and align our interest with their interest with our academic endeavours. Another partnership is slightly different. Agilent have opened their own centre and measurement suite within the college setting, and through that suite, where academics come and using their equipment, they are really stemming new collaborations with the academics that are using their expertise and equipment on our site. And proximity often creates a lot more opportunity. So that's another way through which we can create benefits for academics and the companies. And the final couple of slides is the entrepreneurial ecosystem as we see it within the Imperial College setting. It's anything from education, research and services. So education, we focus a lot on various entrepreneurship programs, various challenges that we offer our students in terms of teaching them what entrepreneurship is and providing challenges where they can win money to set up their own businesses. We have incubation facilities, mentoring and acceleration, and also offer funding. So that's more from an educational student experience, and from a more staff experience, education is very key, but we really hold their hand and push them through that process of basic research through to translation into the real world. And their overlap with that is the various groups that exist within our division. So this is the final slide. Going back to that journey, we feel that working with industry, working and really focusing on that translation and with professional help, it can really have huge impact on academics' careers, whether early or late. And we work across in very, very many ways, helping the academics engage with industry, anything from consulting or maybe just a small studentship, all the way through to large collaborations and licensing deals where there's significant financial benefit as well as impact on bringing new medication to life. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll hand back over to Andre. Thank you, Andre.
Great presentation, Vjera. That's very interesting. And so this is a perspective from the academics.